Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In February 1912, the Qing Dynasty issued the Abdication Edict, announcing the relinquishment of national authority. As part of the agreement, the Qing Dynasty received the famous, auspicious treatise for the Qing imperial family. According to this condition, Puyi could temporarily stay in the Forbidden City, but later he would need to relocate to the Summer Palace. However, during the era of Yuan Shikai, Puyi was not expelled from the imperial palace due to political considerations. Subsequent warlord factions, both the Anhui and Zhili cliques, were preoccupied with internal conflicts and had no time to deal with Puyi's situation. However, on November 5, 1924, Feng Yuxiang occupied Beijing, detained the president Chao Kun, and ordered the expulsion of Puyi. Feng Yuxiang, a general of the Beiyang government at the time, held practical political power. Despite the Qing dynasty's demise, there were still remnants of Qing loyalists plotting a restoration, with the reinstatement of Puyi being one such plan. Feng Yuxiang believed that as long as Puyi remained in the Forbidden City, this possibility persisted. To completely change this situation, he decided to expel Puyi, allowing the revolution to proceed smoothly. There were various reasons for expelling Puyi. One was that, according to the previous agreement, he was not supposed to stay in the Forbidden City. Feng Yuxiang's subordinates threatened to bombard the palace, causing Puyi great fear, and he had to escape the Forbidden City with the imperial treasures. Puyi recalled the morning when he was informed that Feng Yuxiang had ordered his expulsion, giving all members of the Qing imperial family 3 hours to leave. This news was like a bolt from the blue for Puyi, causing panic and anxiety. The notification was so sudden, providing only 3 hours, catching the inhabitants of the Forbidden City off guard. Puyi was alarmed and could only dispatch people to delay the process while hastily packing his belongings. The eunuchs hurriedly packed, and these long-term residents of the Forbidden City found themselves in an inescapable dilemma. Feng Yuxiang's troops ordered the eunuchs and palace maids left behind in the Forbidden City to find their own way out, but most of these people had entered the palace at a young age and had no survival skills. They suddenly lost their reliance, and while palace maids might find marriage opportunities, eunuchs were left without support, facing unknown life challenges. To prevent anyone from taking palace items privately, the palace maids of Shokang Palace were inspected by guards as they left Shenwoman. This measure aimed to safeguard the precious cultural relics and historical heritage in the Forbidden City, ensuring they would not be taken away or damaged. Imperial Consort Jingyi and Imperial Consort Ronghui left 18 days after Puyi's departure. Both were consorts from the Tongzhi era, having experienced the chaos of the Eight-Nation Alliance, so they were not shocked by Feng Yuxiang's actions, facing this historical upheaval with determination. Before leaving the palace, Puyi prepared dismissal fees for palace maids and eunuchs to help them start a new life. Each eunuch could receive 10 yuan, while palace maids received 8 yuan. Although this was a gesture from Puyi, for those who had lost palace life, the external world still presented significant challenges. Compared to the dismissal fees, experts once said that the total value of cultural relics taken by Puyi from the Forbidden City, while difficult to estimate, had a baseline value exceeding the combined wealth of 2 present-day Bill Gates. Although this statement may seem exaggerated, it indirectly highlights the immense value of the cultural relics Puyi possessed in the Forbidden City. It is said that Puyi took away 78 boxes of wealth from the Forbidden City, all containing rare treasures. In reality, Puyi moved much more than just those 78 boxes, among them were more than 40 boxes of jade and jewelry. He had already made preparations, transferring a large number of jewels, jade artifacts, and paintings outside the palace in advance. For example, from July to December 1922, Puyi, under the pretext of gifting his cousin Puyi, moved 210 rare ancient books from the Song and Yuan dynasties, over 2,000 ancient paintings from the Tang, Song, Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties, including masterpieces like Gu Kaiji's, the admonitions of the instructress to the palace ladies, Yan Liben's, Emperor Taizong receiving the Tibetan envoy, zhou fangs, court ladies adorning their hair with flowers, and gu hongzhongs, night revels of Han. Shizai. These artifacts were priceless and irreplaceable, making them treasures. Puyi's cousin, Puyi, escorted them to 166 Gordon Road, Tianjin International Settlement. These artifacts were considered rare treasures, and some were deemed invaluable. Later, historians analyzed that Puyi lost the palaces but took away the wealth accumulated by the Qing Dynasty for over 200 years. 1 year later, Puyi sold 16 golden bells, over 1,900 pearls, and more than 180 gemstones for a total of 800,000 silver dollars. A year later, he sold another large batch of cultural relics to a French businessman, earning 600,000 silver dollars. Every 3 to 5 years, Puyi would engage in transactions worth tens of thousands of silver dollars. Some estimates indicate that, before leaving Pseudo-Manchukuo, Puyi openly sold cultural relics that earned him over 2.3 million silver dollars. In 1932, when Puyi went from Tianjin to northeast China, he took with him over 1,000 famous paintings, more than 200 rare books, and a large quantity of gold bars. Later, when Japan surrendered and Puyi was captured by the Soviet army, he still carried 2 boxes of the most precious treasures. Some of these treasures were confiscated by the Soviets and placed in museums, but the majority were returned to China. The treasures returned by the Soviets to China numbered over 400 pieces, with a combined value of at least 1.5 billion renminbi. Later, Puyi went to Tianjin, tirelessly uniting various forces, always preparing for a restoration. These military officials he united in Tianjin had a unified name, Yugong. According to incomplete statistics, the 71 military officials and bureaucrats as Yugong owned property worth 631 million renminbi, surpassing the annual fiscal revenue of the Beijing government at that time. Among them, 10 people had assets exceeding 20 million renminbi, and Zhang Zuolin was one of them. Puyi certainly had dealings with Zhang Zuolin and used a large number of antiques and cash to influence Zhang Zuolin's subordinates. Based on these expenses and the wealth of the Yugong, it can be inferred that Puyi possessed enormous wealth. However, he worked hard for a long time without much result, money was spent in large sums, and things kept going downhill. Due to the massive spending, Puyi later took out those precious calligraphy and paintings stored in the Gordon Road, Tianjin International Settlement. Later, he went north to Changchun, joined the Japanese army, and became the emperor of the Pseudo-Manchukuo. The remaining cultural relics taken from the palace were stored in the library building under the east room of the Pseudo-Imperial Palace's eastern court. From Tianjin to Changchun, then from Changchun to Shenyang, and from Shenyang to the Soviet Union, Puyi's treasures were lost along the way. In December 1959, Puyi returned to Beijing. 2 months later, he entered the Forbidden City. Seeing the relics re-exhibited in the Forbidden City, he found that, after many historical calamities, only a few items had survived. One ancient painting caught his eye. It was the Along the River during the Qingming festival, which he had once stolen from the palace with his cousin Puyi. Standing in front of this painting, Puyi had become a Beijing citizen. After these decades of storms, Puyi no longer possessed inexhaustible private wealth, nor did he hold the lofty position of the Eternal Lord anymore. This is History and Culture Channel. Your support through likes and subscriptions keeps us going strong. See you in our next update. Stay tuned.